Under the trees, the air felt wrong. Harry knew the forbidden forest could be scary. He had been here before. Spiders, centaurs, things that did not want to be seen. But tonight was different. Tonight, the darkness felt like it was waiting. Umbridge marched ahead like she owned the place. Her pink cardigan looked silly against the black trees. Her wand was raised like a sharp finger. "Detention," she said, in a bright voice that did not match her eyes. "You will learn respect, Mr. Potter." Hagrid walked beside Harry and Hermione, huge and tense. He kept glancing up at the branches. "Professor Umbridge," Hagrid rumbled, trying to sound calm. "This really ain't safe." "Nonsense," Umbridge cut in. "The Ministry has full confidence in my judgment." Hermione's face was tight. She held her wand close, but not pointed. Harry could feel his heart beating in his throat. They walked deeper, and the trees closed around them. Then the wind stopped. Every leaf froze. Even the forest went quiet, like it was holding its breath. A cold pressure pushed down on Harry's shoulders. It was not like being tired. It was like something heavy had stepped into the world. Hagrid stopped first. His big hand lifted, blocking Harry and Hermione. "Stay behind me," he whispered. Umbridge stepped forward anyway. "Who's there?" she snapped. "Show yourself at once." The sky above the trees changed. A thin line of bright light appeared, high up, like a crack in glass. The crack widened. It did not look like lightning. It looked like reality had split. Hermione made a small sound. That isn't apparition." The crack became a tear. Light poured out, hard and pale, and something fell through. It hit the ground with a deep thud that Harry felt in his teeth. Dirt jumped. A nearby tree shook. Birds burst out of branches in a screaming cloud and vanished. For a moment, nothing moved. Then the thing stood. It was taller than any man. It wore black armor that looked old and perfect at the same time. The armor did not shine. It drank the light. Harry could not see a face, only shadow under a heavy helm. Umbridge's mouth opened, ready to shout again. But the air pushed back. Fear hit Harry like a wave. Not the normal kind. Not the kind where you think, "I might get hurt." This fear came with pictures, fast and sharp. He saw himself alone in a dark hall. He saw everyone he loved turned away from him. He saw a giant eye, burning and watchful, and a feeling that said, "You belong to me." His knees went weak. Beside him, Hermione grabbed his sleeve with shaking fingers. Ron was not there, but Harry could almost hear Ron's voice in his head, making it worse. "This is mad. This is completely mad." Umbridge lifted her wand with a jerk. "You are trespassing on Ministry-controlled grounds," she squealed. "By the authority of—" The armored figure turned its head slowly toward her. It did not rush. It did not flinch. It just looked. Umbridge's voice died. Her face drained of color. Her eyes went wide, like she had seen something under her own skin. Hagrid growled and stepped forward, half in front of her without meaning to. "Leave 'em be," he said, low. The figure's attention slid past them, as if they were not the main point. It looked toward Hogwarts. Harry followed its gaze, and his stomach sank. It was looking at the castle like a person looks at a lock. The figure raised one hand, not a wand, just a hand. A broken iron chain lay on the ground, left from some old trap. The links were rusted and bent. The chain lifted into the air. It did not float like a feather. It rose like it was being pulled by a strong rope. The links twisted. They bent. They pressed together. In seconds, the chain had become a smooth circle of iron. "A ring," Hermione whispered. That's transfiguration, but not like." The figure's voice came at last. It was deep, calm, and heavy. Each word landed like a stone. "Who rules this tower of stone?" Umbridge swallowed. She tried to straighten up, like she was talking to a student. "I do," she said, though it sounded like a lie even to her. "I am the High Inquisitor of Hogwarts, appointed by the Ministry of Magic." The figure turned fully toward her. Harry felt the pressure again, stronger this time. Umbridge's wand shook in her hand. "Ministerial words," the figure said. "Small crowns." Umbridge's lips pulled back. She forced herself to squeak. Stupefy. A red bolt shot forward. It hit the figure's chest and vanished, like a spark that died in deep water. No stumble, no sound. Umbridge stared. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Hagrid moved, fast for someone so huge. He shoved Harry and Hermione behind a tree and lifted his umbrella wand. Protego, Hermione cried anyway, even though she knew shields were for spells, not for whatever this was. The figure lifted the ring of iron in its palm. It did not put it on. It held it like a thought. Then it spoke again, not loud, but the forest heard it. Order will come. Harry's scar exploded with pain. He gasped and clutched his forehead. For 1 second, he was not in the forest. He was in a cold place with a thin, high laugh. He felt another mind far away turn its head. Voldemort. And something else. Something older. Harry blinked back into the forest. The armored figure had already begun to walk, not toward them, toward the castle. Each step was steady, like it had all the time in the world. Umbridge sank to her knees in the dirt, panting like she had run a mile. Hagrid stared after the figure, his face pale. Hermione's eyes were wet, but her voice was sharp. We have to tell Dumbledore. Now. Harry swallowed. His scar still throbbed. And deep in his chest, under the fear, something colder settled in. The feeling that Hogwarts had just been noticed. Dumbledore did not raise his voice. That was what made everyone else sound small in his office. The circular room felt crowded, even with only a few people inside. The portraits whispered. Fawkes watched from his perch, quiet and bright. Hagrid stood near the door like he might block it if needed. He looked angry and embarrassed all at once. I'm telling you, Hagrid said, hands clenched. It weren't any creature I know, and it weren't no normal wizard. Dolores Umbridge sat stiffly in a chair as far from Dumbledore's desk as she could manage. She had tried to fix her hair. She had failed. She kept glancing at the shadows in the corners, like they might look back. Minerva McGonagall stood straight, lips thin. Phileas Flitwick sat on a stack of books to be tall enough to see everyone. Severus Snape leaned against a wall with his arms folded, his expression unreadable. Harry and Hermione stood near McGonagall. Harry could still feel the forest on his skin. Dumbledore listened. He asked one question at a time. Calm. Clear. What did it do? He asked. Hagrid described the crack in the sky, the fall, the ring. When Hagrid spoke about the fear, he faltered, like he did not want to admit it had touched him too. It weren't like being scared of something big, Hagrid said. It were like the air told you to be scared. Hermione spoke next. The magic felt different. It didn't follow wand work. It was like pressure, like a mind pushing on the world. Dumbledore's blue eyes turned to Umbridge. And you, Dolores? Umbridge's chin lifted, trying to find her old shape. It attacked us, she said. It resisted lawful authority. It is clearly a dangerous being that must be captured at once. The Ministry... Snape's voice cut in, soft and sharp. Your spell did nothing. Umbridge's cheeks reddened. It was protected by some kind of artifact. Dumbledore's gaze stayed gentle. Did it speak? Harry swallowed. It asked, who ruled Hogwarts? Dumbledore's fingers paused on his desk. Not fear, not surprise. More like he had found the first piece of a hard puzzle. What did you answer? Dumbledore asked Umbridge. Umbridge's mouth tightened. I said the truth, that the Ministry... McGonagall made a sound like a cough. It was not a friendly cough. Dumbledore nodded once, slowly. I see. He stood, and the room quieted in a deeper way. Dumbledore walked to a shelf and took down a thin, old object that looked like a silver circle with markings on it. He touched his wand to it. The air hummed. A faint line of light appeared in the air, like a map being drawn. It curved and twisted, tracing the edges of Hogwarts. The wards are intact, Dumbledore said. But they are unsettled. Flitwick frowned, like they have been tested. Snape's eyes narrowed. It prodded them. Dumbledore looked at Harry. Your scar hurt. Harry nodded, swallowing hard. It was like when Voldemort is near. The word Voldemort made the portraits hiss and murmur. Umbridge snapped. You will not speak that name in my presence. McGonagall turned her head slowly. Dolores, she said. If you attempt to take points from a student for saying the name of a dark wizard while we are discussing a threat that made your wand look like a toy, I will personally escort you out of this room. Umbridge looked like she might explode. Dumbledore raised a hand slightly. The room settled. Harry, Dumbledore said softly. Did you see anything else? Any image? Harry hesitated. He did not like saying it out loud. An eye, he said. A burning one. And a feeling. Like being owned. Hermione flinched at the word owned. Snape's mouth tightened, just a little, like he disliked the shape of the danger. Dumbledore's voice stayed calm. Thank you. He turned to the others. We will treat this as we would treat any unknown power. We will gather information. We will protect the students. Umbridge lifted her chin. The Ministry will take charge. I will write to. No. Dumbledore said simply. The word was not loud. It did not need to be. Umbridge stared. Excuse me? Dumbledore looked at her with the same gentle eyes, but something hard lived behind them. Hogwarts is under my protection. If the Ministry wishes to offer support, it may do so. It will not command the response. Umbridge's smile turned sharp. You cannot refuse a direct order from the Minister. Snape's voice was dry. Watch him. Umbridge's eyes flicked to Snape, then away. Dumbledore moved back to his desk. He lifted his wand again, and the silver map-like light shifted. It pulsed near the Forbidden Forest. He is still on the grounds, Flitwick said. Hermione whispered, He? McGonagall glanced at her. It feels wrong to call it an it. Harry hugged his arms tighter. He understood that. Dumbledore nodded. I will send additional patrols. Phileas, strengthen the charm around the common rooms. Minerva, please speak to the heads of house. Keep the students inside tonight. McGonagall nodded once. Of course. Umbridge opened her mouth. Dumbledore added, Dolores, you will not take students into the forest again. Umbridge's smile was fake and tight. For their safety, of course. Hagrid made a small, angry noise under his breath. Dumbledore's eyes turned to Snape. Severus. Snape's gaze did not move. You want me to find it. I want you to learn what it is, Dumbledore said. Snape's lip curled slightly. If it allows itself to be learned. Dumbledore's eyes flicked to Fawkes. The Phoenix tilted its head as if listening. You will not engage alone, Dumbledore said. Snape's voice was flat. I never do. Harry felt Hermione shift beside him. She was thinking fast. He could see it in the tight line of her mouth. As Dumbledore spoke to the professors, Harry's mind kept slipping back to the forest. The ring in the armored hand. The calm voice. Order will come. It did not sound like a threat, shouted in anger. It sounded like a plan. In the corridors outside, the school tried to pretend it was normal. It failed. Whispers raced ahead of students like wind. Doors closed too quickly. People jumped at shadows that moved the wrong way. At breakfast, the great hall was loud, but the laughter was forced. Ron slid into the seat next to Harry, eyes wide. Is it true? Is it true there was this thing in the forest? Harry nodded once. Ron exhaled like he had been holding his breath for an hour. Brilliant, he muttered. Just brilliant. Like we didn't have enough. Hermione was not eating. She was scanning the teacher's table. Umbridge sat there as if nothing had happened, smiling at students like she was proud of herself. McGonagall's face was like stone. Dumbledore was calm, but Harry could see he was paying attention to everything. Every door, every window, every empty space where something could be watching. Ron leaned closer. Fred and George say Filch is patrolling like he's been told there's a giant rat loose. Hermione's voice was low. Filch's idea of danger is mud. Ron snorted, then his face fell. Also, we lost 30 points from Gryffindor. Harry blinked. What? Ron's eyes went furious. For being out after hours last night, even though Umbridge forced you. Hermione's hand clenched around her fork. That is insane. Ron pointed with his chin toward the hourglasses. She did it anyway. Harry stared at the red stones. He almost laughed, but it came out as a short breath. The world had cracked open in the forest, and someone had still found time to take points. Hermione moved like she had a mission. By mid-morning, she had Harry and Ron in the library, even though Ron clearly wanted to be anywhere else. Madame Pince glared at them like she could smell trouble. Hermione slammed down a stack of books that made Ron wince. "We have to find something," she whispered. Ron rubbed his ear. "Maybe it's just, I don't know, a really big suit of armor." Hermione gave him a look. Ron lifted his hands. "Fine, not a suit of armor." Hermione flipped through a book of dark creatures. It didn't behave like a wizard. It didn't use a wand. It didn't even react to Umbridge's stunner. Harry stared at a page without seeing it. He kept hearing the voice. "Who rules this Tower of Stone?" He swallowed. It looked at Hogwarts like it wanted to own it. Hermione's eyes flicked up. "Yes." Ron's voice was small. "Can it?" Hermione did not answer right away. That was what scared Ron most. She lowered her voice. "Dumbledore is powerful. The castle wards are powerful. But this felt old. Like the kind of magic that comes from being something, not from learning spells." Harry thought about the fear wave. It was in our heads. Hermione nodded once. "And if it can do that without a wand, then it might do worse with time." Ron swallowed. "How is this our life?" Hermione's mouth twitched, almost a smile. It vanished fast. "We handle it the way we handle everything. We learn, we plan, and we don't do anything stupid." Ron looked straight at Harry. "No offense." Harry rolled his eyes. "None taken." Hermione grabbed another book. "We should tell Sirius." Harry's heart tightened. "We can't just—" Hermione's eyes were sharp. "Harry, if Voldemort felt it too, then the Order needs to know everything." Harry looked down at his scar, still sore. He hated that she was right. Far from the library, under the trees, the armored stranger moved without hurry. No centaur stepped in its way. No spider approached. Even the air felt like it leaned back. It stopped near the edge of the grounds where the stone of Hogwarts rose from the earth like a cliff. The stranger looked at it again. Not with wonder. With focus. It raised a hand toward the wall. The stone was covered in wards, layers of old magic woven into the castle like bones. Most wizards did not see them. They only felt safe because of them. The stranger did not need to see them with eyes. It felt them like threads. Its mind pressed gently at first. Testing. The wards hummed back, firm, proud, loyal to the castle. The stranger tilted its head. It pressed harder. The wards flared, like a warning. The stranger stopped, not pushed away, but noticed. "So, this tower has a will," it thought, in a cold, clear way. It lowered its hand and began to walk along the wall. It did not need to rush. Rushing was for creatures afraid of time. Time was a tool. As it walked, it listened. Inside the castle, minds moved like lights. Children, teachers, fear, hope, anger, love. So many soft places to push. Then the stranger felt something else. A tear. A soul that was not whole. Not one. Many. Hidden in objects. Split. Anchored. Clinging to the world like broken nails. The stranger's attention sharpened. Someone here had tried to cheat death. Someone here had torn themselves into pieces. The stranger almost approved. Almost. Then it felt a stronger tear. Close, bright, and familiar in shape. A boy. A doorway. The stranger paused, facing the castle. It did not smile. It did not need to. It simply chose. Not yet, it decided. First, learn the rules of this place. Then rewrite them. That night, the teachers made Hogwarts feel like a guarded fortress. Prefects patrolled. Professors walked the halls. The suits of armor stood straighter, as if they were listening for a call. Harry lay in bed, staring at the canopy above him. Ron slept badly. He muttered in his sleep and kicked the blankets like he was fighting something. Seamus whispered in the dark, "My mum's going to pull me out of school." Dean whispered back, Yeah, and go where? Somewhere safer. Harry closed his eyes. His scar pulsed, once, like a warning. He thought of Dumbledore's calm voice. Protect the students. He thought of Umbridge's voice. Ministry orders. And he thought of that other voice, deep and heavy. Order will come. Harry's stomach twisted. He did not know what it was. But he knew one thing. It had looked at Hogwarts like Hogwarts was already part of its plan. The next day brought more rules. New educational decrees appeared on the walls like pink bruises. Students gathered to read them, groaning. Ron read one and whispered, "She's banned. Groups of 3 or more in corridors." Hermione's face went tight. That's not even possible. Ron stabbed the paper with his finger. It's signed, so apparently it is. Harry watched students back away from each other like being near a friend was a crime. He felt anger rise, hot and sharp. He did not know how to fight a towering stranger in armor, but he knew how to fight this. Hermione leaned close. "Tonight," she whispered, "we meet. Same place." Harry nodded. If the world was going to get darker, he would not do it alone. In a far-off place that smelled of dust and old stone, a pale man lifted his head. Red eyes narrowed. A presence lingered in the air, not like a spell, not like a ghost. It felt like a rival claim. Voldemort did not flinch. He did not fear competitors. He crushed them. But this felt different. Older. Not better. Not stronger in a simple way. Just older. He called for a servant with a flick of his fingers. "Find it," he hissed. "Do not fight it. Watch. Learn. Bring me the truth." A Death Eater bowed and vanished. Voldemort's lips curled. "If it seeks a throne," he whispered to the darkness, "it will learn this world already has a king." Night fell again, and Hogwarts did not sleep. The fear started like a whisper. It slid under doors. It drifted through cracks. It moved through the castle like cold breath. Harry woke with his heart racing. For 1 second, he did not know where he was. He knew only the feeling. The same crushing pressure from the forest. He sat up fast. "Ron," he whispered. Ron was already awake, eyes wide and shiny. "You feel it too?" From other beds, boys began to stir. Someone whimpered. Someone swore softly. Then a scream ripped through the tower. It was high, terrified, and real. Harry shoved himself out of bed and grabbed his wand. Ron did the same. They burst into the corridor with other students. Paintings shook on the walls. Some portraits had slammed their curtains shut. Down the hall, nearly headless Nick floated out of a wall, his face pale, even for a ghost. "Something is wrong," he said, voice trembling. "The castle. It feels watched." More screams came from below. Harry's scar burned. Not like a quick sting. Like a hand squeezing his head. He gritted his teeth and forced himself forward. "Stay together," Hermione's voice snapped behind him. She appeared with her hair wild and her wand ready, like she had jumped out of bed without thinking. Ron looked at her, almost relieved. "How are you always here?" Hermione didn't answer. Her eyes were fixed on the stairs. They ran down. On the landing, Professor McGonagall appeared, robes flying, her face sharp and focused. "Back," she ordered. "All of you, back to your dormitories." Harry took a step forward anyway. "Professor." McGonagall's eyes flicked to his scar, her voice softened by a hair. "Potter, go back. That is an order." A crash echoed from far below. Stone dust drifted up the stairwell. McGonagall's jaw tightened. She turned and ran down again. Hermione grabbed Harry's sleeve. "We need to listen," she whispered. "If it's him." Ron swallowed. "Can we not call it him like it's a teacher?" Hermione's grip tightened. "Ron." Ron shut up. Harry breathed in, slow, and tried to focus through the pain. He could feel something moving through the castle. Not footsteps. Intent. Like a hand reaching into a locked drawer. Deep inside Hogwarts, in a corridor most students did not even know existed, a blank wall shimmered. A door appeared. Not with a click, with a quiet surrender. The armored stranger stood before it, calm. It had walked into the castle without breaking a wall. It had not needed to. It had simply pressed on fear until guards looked away. It stepped into the room. The air inside smelled like metal and heat, even though no fire burned. The room of requirement had become what the stranger needed. A forge. A workspace. An answer. The stranger lifted the iron ring it had made in the forest. It placed it on a stone table. Then it raised its hand. Shadows gathered like cloth being pulled into shape. The shadows wrapped around the ring, not hiding it, but coating it in purpose. The ring did not glow. It darkened, as if it was learning how to hold a claim. The stranger's mind reached again, not at the ring, but at the castle. Show me your rules, it thought. The castle pushed back. Wards flared, not like fire, but like a living warning. The stranger's presence pressed harder. The castle trembled. In the corridors outside, suits of armor twitched. A sword lifted an inch, then dropped. A helmet turned the wrong way. A portrait screamed and slammed itself shut. The stranger did not look away from the ring. Professor Flitwick arrived at a run, tiny body moving fast, wand raised. Behind him came Snape, black robes like a blade, his eyes cold. McGonagall appeared at the end of the corridor, her wand out, her mouth a hard line. "The room of requirement," Hermione whispered, eyes wide as she listened from the stairs. "He's in there." Ron looked like he wanted to faint. "How do you know that?" Hermione whispered. "Because the castle feels like it's being forced." Harry's scar burned again, and he knew she was right. Down the hall, Flitwick flicked his wand. A line of bright charm work raced along the stones, forming a barrier like clear glass. "Containment," Flitwick said, voice tight. "Now." Snape's eyes narrowed. "If it chooses to stay contained." McGonagall did not waste words. "On my signal." They moved closer. The air grew heavier with each step. Then the door at the far wall opened. The armored stranger stepped out. It did not look rushed. It did not look surprised to see them. It looked like it had expected them, because of course they would come. McGonagall's voice was sharp. "You are not a student. You are not staff. You will leave this castle at once." The stranger's helm tilted. Its voice was calm. "This tower hides power." Flitwick's wand trembled just a little, but his voice was firm. "This is Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. You will not threaten children here." The stranger's head turned toward him. For a second, Flitwick's face tightened like he was holding back a memory. He stayed standing. He stayed himself. "Good," the stranger seemed to think without words. Then it looked at Snape. Snape's eyes did not flinch. His mind was a closed door by habit. The stranger pressed. Snape's expression hardened, but a bead of sweat appeared at his temple. He did not fall. He did not scream. He simply narrowed his eyes even more, like he hated the effort being used on him. McGonagall raised her wand. Now, spells flew. A net of light, a binding charm, a cutting line meant to slice through shadows. The stranger lifted a hand. The spells hit something unseen and broke apart, like waves hitting a cliff. The corridor shook as stone cracked under sudden force. Flitwick's barrier flared, holding, and his face went pale with strain. McGonagall flicked her wand and shouted, "Per totem locomotor." The suits of armor along the corridor snapped to life at once. They marched forward with metal steps and raised swords. For a heartbeat, it looked like the castle itself had chosen a side. Then the stranger pressed again. The armor froze mid-step. Their swords trembled. Some turned, not toward the stranger, but toward McGonagall. McGonagall's eyes widened. "No!" Snape moved fast. He slashed his wand through the air. A wave of black defense magic snapped through the corridor, cutting the stranger's pressure off the armor for 1 second. Flitwick seized that second and snapped, "Finite." The armor jerked back to Hogwarts' control, like waking from a bad dream. The stranger's voice was mild. "Your stone obeys. Your minds obey. Everything obeys, if the hand is strong enough." McGonagall's face went tight with fury. "Not here." She fired again, faster, sharper. The stranger did not dodge like a normal fighter. It simply moved, and the air shifted with it. Shadows rose from the floor and formed a wall. Spells struck the shadow wall and vanished. Flitwick changed tactics. He fired at the ceiling. The stone above the stranger cracked, then dropped in a heavy slab. The stranger lifted one hand. The slab froze in midair. It hung there like a paused thought. Then the stranger flicked its wrist. The slab shot down the corridor toward the professors like a cannonball. Flitwick's eyes went wide. He snapped his wand down, and his barrier thickened. The stone hit the barrier with a boom that rattled windows. Flitwick staggered back, gasping. Snape caught his shoulder, keeping him upright. McGonagall's voice stayed steady, but her eyes flashed. "You will not harm my staff." The stranger did not answer. It raised its hand again. The fear wave hit the corridor, focused now. Not a wide wash like the forest. A spear aimed at their minds. McGonagall stiffened, her lips pressed together. She did not fall, but her fingers tightened so hard on her wand that her knuckles went white. Flitwick's breath hitched. Snape's face went still, like stone. Harry, listening from above, felt the fear slam into him too, like an echo. He saw a flash of the burning eye again. He saw Hogwarts in ruins. He saw people kneeling. His scar screamed. He nearly dropped to his knees. Hermione grabbed his arm. "Harry, look at me. Breathe." Her eyes were fierce. "Real. Here." Harry forced air into his lungs. Ron's voice shook. "Why is it in my head? Why is it in my head?" Hermione whispered, "Because it wants you to feel small." Harry swallowed. His hands shook, but his feet stayed under him. Down below, the stranger's attention drifted, and for a tiny second, Harry felt it, like a finger brushing his scar. A question without words. "This is the door," the stranger seemed to realize. Harry's stomach turned. A new sound cut through the corridor. A high, clear note, like a song that made the air feel clean. Fawkes's cry. Then Dumbledore appeared. He did not run. He stepped into the corridor like a person entering a room they owned. His wand was in his hand, but he did not point it right away. His eyes met the shadow under the stranger's helm. For a moment, the corridor felt like it held its breath again. Dumbledore spoke first, calm. "You are not from this world." The stranger's voice was steady. "This world is small, but it has tools." Dumbledore's mouth did not smile, but warmth lived in his eyes. "Hogwarts is not a tool, it is a home." The stranger tilted its head. "Homes are claimed." McGonagall's voice was tight. "Headmaster." Dumbledore lifted a hand slightly. Not a command, a reassurance. He took one slow step forward. "May I ask your name?" Dumbledore said. The stranger paused. Harry felt his scar burn again, like it hated the question. For a second, Harry thought the stranger might answer. But the stranger only said, "Names are for those who obey rules." Dumbledore nodded once, as if he had expected that. "Then we will call you what you are," Dumbledore said. "A threat to the people under my care." The stranger's presence thickened. Dumbledore's wand lifted, and the hallway changed. The stone around them shone with hidden markings as old wards woke up like sleeping lions. Light lines ran along the floor, the walls, the ceiling. A circle formed around the stranger, not made of fire, but of rules. The stranger pressed back. The circle trembled. Stone cracked. Windows rattled. But the circle held. Dumbledore's voice stayed calm, but it was no longer gentle. "You may not take this place." The stranger's hand lifted, and shadows surged like a tide. Dumbledore flicked his wand, and the shadows froze as if they had hit an invisible wall. Then he moved his wand in a sharp, tight motion. The shadows snapped backward, pushed away like smoke in a strong wind. The stranger did not stumble, but it paused. It had found something in this world that did not bend easily. Dumbledore stepped forward again. "Leave." The stranger's voice was low. "You guard children with stone and words." Dumbledore's eyes did not blink. "I guard them with choice." The stranger's attention shifted, just slightly, toward the stairs, toward the place where Harry stood listening. Harry's scar blazed. Dumbledore noticed. His gaze flicked to the stairwell. And in that flicker, the stranger learned something. The stranger did not need to win tonight. It needed to learn. It lifted its hand, and the iron ring inside the room behind it slid across the stone table and vanished into shadow like it had been swallowed. Dumbledore's eyes narrowed. "What have you taken?" The stranger's voice was calm, a beginning. Then it moved. Not by running, not by apparition. It pressed itself into the darkness at the edge of the corridor like a figure stepping behind a curtain. The castle wards flared, angry. Dumbledore's wand snapped, and light shot out, trying to grab the stranger's shape. For a heartbeat, the stranger's outline became clear against the stone. Tall, armored, heavy. Then the outline slipped away. A cold gust blew down the corridor. The pressure in everyone's chest eased, just a little. McGonagall let out a breath that sounded like she had been holding it for minutes. Flitwick sat down hard on the floor, panting. Snape's eyes stayed on the dark end of the corridor, like he expected the stranger to return just to prove a point. Dumbledore lowered his wand slowly. His face looked calm, but his eyes had changed. They looked older. Harry and Hermione and Ron reached the bottom of the stairs before anyone could stop them. McGonagall turned sharply. "Potter!" Harry ignored the shout because Dumbledore was looking right at him. Dumbledore's gaze went to Harry's scar. "Your connection," Dumbledore said softly, as if speaking to himself, "is now noticed." Harry swallowed. "It touched my mind." Hermione's voice shook, but she stood tall. It was using fear like a tool. Dumbledore nodded once. "Yes." Snape's voice was quiet and hard. "It came here to study, not to slaughter." Flitwick rubbed his forehead. "But it could have, if it wished." McGonagall's jaw tightened. "And it may wish to, later." Dumbledore's eyes lifted to the corridor where the stranger had vanished. "Then we do not give it time," Dumbledore said. Ron swallowed. "Sir, what is it?" Dumbledore did not answer right away. He looked at the students. At their fear. At their bravery. He spoke carefully. "I do not know its name. Not yet." His voice dropped lower. "But I know this." He looked at Harry again. "It believes this world can be ruled," Dumbledore said, "and it is patient." Harry's scar throbbed, like it agreed. Far beyond the castle walls, in the cold trees, the armored stranger stood still in the dark. It held the iron ring in its hand again. It did not put it on. Not yet. It listened to the castle. It listened to the boy's pain. It listened to the other dark mind far away, sharp with pride. Then it spoke to no one that Hogwarts could hear. Doors can be opened. And in the distance, Hogwarts tried to feel safe again. But the feeling of being watched did not fully leave. Morning at Hogwarts always tried to act normal. The ceiling in the Great Hall still showed a soft sky. Plates still filled with food. Students still argued about homework. But the noise was wrong. It sounded like people talking too loudly to cover fear. Harry sat between Ron and Hermione, and none of them touched their toast. Every few seconds, Harry's eyes drifted to the doors, as if the armored stranger might walk in and ask who ruled the hall. Ron kept twisting his napkin like he was trying to strangle it. "Do you think it's still inside the castle?" he whispered. Hermione didn't look up from the teacher's table. "If it can step into shadows, it can be anywhere." "That's comforting," Ron muttered. Harry's scar gave a dull ache. Not burning, just there, like a reminder. On the dais, Umbridge stood up with a bright smile that made Harry's stomach turn. She raised her hands for silence as if she was about to announce a school dance. "Good morning, children," she trilled. "There has been a small disturbance." A wave of whispers moved through the hall. Umbridge smiled wider. "Nothing to worry about. The ministry is aware. Safety measures are being taken, and I have issued new educational decrees to ensure order." Her eyes flicked to Harry. "Starting today," she said, "students will remain in their common rooms after dinner. No wandering. No secret meetings. No heroic nonsense." Hermione's jaw tightened so hard Harry could see it. Umbridge clapped once. "Also 10 points from Gryffindor for whispering during announcements." Ron's mouth fell open. "We weren't even—" "Another 10, Umbridge said sweetly without looking. "For protesting." The red stones in the Gryffindor hourglass slid down like tiny insults. Harry felt heat rise in his chest. He wanted to stand. He wanted to shout. Hermione put a hand on his sleeve, firm. "Not now," her grip said. "Not like this." Dumbledore did not stand. He sat at the center of the table, quiet, hands folded, eyes on Umbridge, as if he was watching a very small, very loud problem. McGonagall's face could have cut stone. Snape stared at his plate like it had personally offended him. Umbridge finished, pleased with herself, and sat down. For a few heartbeats, nobody moved. Then forks clinked. People tried to eat again. Harry's mouth was dry. "What does she think she's doing?" Ron whispered. Hermione's voice was low. "What she always does. She's trying to make fear useful to her." Harry stared at the hourglasses. A world-ending shadow had walked into Hogwarts, and Umbridge still believed points were power. He almost laughed. It came out as a short, bitter breath. Later, Dumbledore called the heads of house and several teachers to his office again. Harry, Hermione, and Ron were not invited. That did not stop them from hovering near a corridor corner and listening as best they could. They heard only pieces. Wards are strained. Students are reporting dreams. Ministry interference. Do not engage alone. Then the door opened, and McGonagall swept out like a storm. Her eyes caught Harry at once. "Mr. Potter," she snapped, and then her voice lowered, sharp and fast. "Go to class." Harry opened his mouth. McGonagall cut him off. "If you wish to help, you will do it by staying alive." Hermione grabbed Harry's arm and pulled him away before he could argue. Ron followed, muttering, "We're always told to stay alive, like it's a hobby." They rounded the corner. Snape stood there, half in shadow, as if he had been waiting. Harry stopped. Snape's eyes flicked over them, and Harry felt that old dislike hit him like a cold splash. Snape spoke without greeting. "If you hear rumors, you do not repeat them." Ron bristled. "We're not." Snape's gaze cut to Ron. "You especially are not." Ron shut his mouth. Snape looked at Harry, and the air between them tightened. "You are feeling it," Snape said quietly. Harry's hand went to his scar without thinking. Snape's mouth twisted. Not in sympathy. In anger, like Harry's pain was an unfair weapon someone else was using. "That thing," Snape said, voice low, "pressed on my mind." Hermione's eyes widened. "You resisted?" Snape's eyes sharpened. "Do not sound surprised, Miss Granger." Hermione did not apologize. "If it can do that to you, then it can do it to children," Snape finished. "Yes." Harry felt his stomach drop. Snape took one step closer. "When fear comes, you will want to run, or fight, or shout." His eyes stayed on Harry. "You will do none of those things until you think." Harry's voice was rough. "It touched my mind." Snape's face went still. "I know." "How?" Harry snapped. Snape's eyes flicked toward Dumbledore's office door. "Because the headmaster knows when the castle is being tested, and because you are loud even when you are silent, Potter." Ron made a small choking sound that might have been a laugh. Snape ignored him. "You will not face it alone," Snape said, and for one strange second it sounded like an order meant to protect, not punish. "If it comes for you, you will call for help." Harry stared at him. "You care now?" Snape's eyes went colder. "Do not be foolish. I care about preventing disaster." He turned, robes sweeping behind him, and vanished down the corridor. Ron exhaled. That was almost nice. Hermione's voice was tight. It wasn't nice, it was serious. Harry didn't answer. His scar pulsed once, like a distant knock. That afternoon, Hermione dragged Harry and Ron back to the library again. Ron complained the whole way, but his voice sounded scared under the complaining. Madame Pince glared at them as if they were carrying mud. Hermione piled books onto the table like she was building a wall. Harry leaned in. "What are we even looking for?" "A name," Hermione whispered. "A pattern. Anything." Ron flipped through a book and frowned. "Here's a chapter on werewolves." Hermione snapped. "Ron." Ron lifted his hands. "I'm looking." Harry stared at the page in front of him and tried to focus, but his mind kept slipping. It kept returning to the corridor where Dumbledore and the armored stranger faced each other like two storms choosing where to strike. The stranger's voice had been calm. Not angry. Not wild. Patient. Like a teacher correcting a child. That was the worst part. Hermione stopped turning pages. Her eyes went distant, like she was listening to a thought. "People are reporting dreams," she said softly. Ron looked up. "Dreams?" Hermione nodded. Lavender said Parvati woke up crying. Seamus said he saw a shadow on his ceiling. A lot of them are saying the same thing. Harry's throat tightened. What kind of dreams? Hermione's voice was careful. Not normal nightmares. More like someone putting fear into your head on purpose. Ron swallowed. Can it do that? Hermione's eyes flicked to Harry's scar. I think it already is. Harry's hand tightened around his quill until it almost snapped. Hermione leaned closer, her voice dropping lower. We need to warn the others. Ron frowned. The others. Hermione's eyes lifted. The D.A. Harry's heart kicked. The D.A. was the only thing that felt like they were doing something that mattered. And it was exactly what Umbridge was trying to crush. Harry glanced around. Not here. Hermione nodded. Tonight. Ron groaned. Of course. Secret meeting. In a haunted school, while a shadow giant walks around. Hermione gave him a look. Ron sighed. Fine. That evening, the room of requirement opened for them like it always did when they needed it. But it felt different now. Not unsafe in a simple way. More like the room itself was nervous. The D.A. gathered in tight clusters. People talked fast. People watched the door. Cho's face was pale. Neville's hands shook. Dean kept looking at the ceiling as if he expected it to crack. Harry stood near the front, trying to look steady. Hermione stood beside him like an anchor. Ron crossed his arms, trying to look brave and failing. Harry raised his voice. Everyone listen. The room quieted. We don't know what it is, Harry said, but it's in Hogwarts. It can make people feel fear without even casting a spell. It can mess with the castle itself. A ripple of frightened sounds moved through the group. Seamus blurted, Is it Voldemort? Harry's scar throbbed at the name, but he shook his head. No. Voldemort would attack. This thing. It studies. A few people looked confused by that. Hermione stepped forward. Studying is worse, she said, because it means it plans. Zacharias Smith scoffed, trying to pretend he wasn't scared. So what, we're supposed to duel it with stunning spells? Hermione's eyes flashed. No. You're supposed to keep your head. You're supposed to protect each other. And you're supposed to learn how to fight fear. Neville's voice was small. How? Harry swallowed. He thought of Snape's words, and hated that they made sense. We practice, Harry said. We don't let panic split us up. We move in teams. We watch for signs. We don't chase shadows alone. A girl in the back whispered, Should we learn? The unforgivable ones? The room went very quiet. Harry felt his stomach twist. Some faces looked horrified. Some faces looked like they had been thinking it too. Hermione's voice was sharp. No. The girl flinched. But if it can do... Hermione stepped forward. That's what it wants. It wants you to believe you have to become a monster to survive a monster. Ron nodded fast. Yeah, and also we'd all go to Azkaban. A few nervous laughs broke out. Harry didn't laugh. He looked around the room. We fight like ourselves, he said. Not like it. The words felt right. But even as he said them, his scar pulsed again, and he wondered if the armored stranger was listening somewhere in the walls. Up in the Slytherin common room, Draco Malfoy sat in a corner chair with a book open in his lap. He was not reading. The room was full of whispering boys trying to sound confident. Father says the Ministry will handle it, one of them said. The Ministry can't even handle Potter, another sneered. Draco kept his face blank. Inside, his thoughts were not steady. He had dreamed last night. Not like normal. In the dream, he stood on a high balcony of black stone. The air was cold, clean, and silent. A voice spoke behind him. It did not shout. It did not beg. It said, You are tired of being small. Draco had turned, but he had not seen a face, only a tall shape in black and a feeling like standing in front of a deep lake. The voice said, "Your world is chaos. Adults lie. Teachers pretend. Your enemies laugh. I can give you order." Draco had felt a cold thrill, not because he liked evil, because he liked the idea of never being scared again. In the dream, the voice did not ask him to kill anyone. It did not ask him to swear loyalty. It only said, "Watch, listen, tell me what moves inside the castle." Draco had woken up with his heart racing. He had told himself it meant nothing. But now, as he sat with his book open, he realized he had been watching all day without meaning to. Watching teachers, watching Potter, watching Dumbledore's calm face. Draco's fingers tightened on the edge of the book. He hated feeling used. But the voice in the dream had not felt like being used. It had felt like being seen. Across the room, Pansy Parkinson leaned close. "Draco," she whispered. "People are saying Potter is meeting with a group again." Draco's eyes flicked to her. "People say lots of things." Pansy's voice sharpened. "You don't care?" Draco forced a smirk. "Of course I care." He stood and closed his book. The room's fire crackled. For a second, Draco thought he saw the fire darken at the edges, like a shadow passing over it. He blinked. It was normal again. He swallowed. And without understanding why, he walked toward the common room exit. In a quiet corridor near the Ravenclaw Tower, Luna Lovegood drifted along as if she was late to a party nobody else could see. She hummed softly. The castle felt tense around her, like a person holding their breath. She stopped in front of a window. Outside, the grounds looked normal: grass, paths, trees. But Luna's eyes stayed on one patch of shadow near the forest line. It was not moving like the other shadows. It looked still, like a thing pretending to be nothing. Footsteps came behind her. Harry walked past, then stopped when he saw Luna. He looked tired. His hair was messier than usual. Luna turned her head. "Hello, Harry." Harry blinked. "Hi." He hesitated, then asked, "Are you okay?" Luna considered. "I think everyone is afraid." Harry's throat tightened. "Yeah." Luna's gaze returned to the shadow outside. "It wants you to feel small." Harry's scar pulsed lightly. He stared at Luna. "How do you know that?" Luna's voice was calm. "Because it doesn't need to break doors. It breaks people first." Harry didn't like how simple that sounded. It felt true. Luna tilted her head. "Your head hurts." Harry's hand went to his scar again. Luna didn't stare at it like a wound. She stared at it like a doorway, the way the armored stranger had. Harry swallowed. "It touched my mind." Luna nodded, like that made sense. "It will come again." Harry felt cold creep up his spine. "And what do I do?" Luna looked at him. Her eyes were gentle. "You don't let it decide what you are," she said. Then she hummed again and walked away as if she had just reminded him about homework. Harry stood by the window, breathing slowly. His scar did not stop hurting, but Luna's words stayed in his chest like a small, steady weight. Far away, in a dark house where fear was a tool, Voldemort stood in silence. The Death Eater who had been sent to watch had returned. He knelt, trembling. "My lord," he whispered. "It is. Not like anything I have seen." Voldemort's red eyes narrowed. "Describe it." The Death Eater swallowed. "Black armor, no wand. It made people afraid without casting, and when it looked at me, I couldn't move." Voldemort's fingers tightened on the arm of his chair. He did not like the word couldn't. The Death Eater rushed on. It fought Dumbledore, not directly, but it had pushed, like it was trying to bend the castle itself. Voldemort's mouth curled. A rival. Not a student, not an auror. Something that did not care about his titles. He stood. The room's shadows seemed to lean toward him, eager. "This world has one Dark Lord," Voldemort hissed softly. He lifted his wand. With a flick, the air in the room rippled. He did not appear it. He reached through something else. A thread. A coal. He sent his will outward like a blade. Find me, he thought at the darkness beyond the walls. Come, speak, kneel. For a moment, nothing answered. Then the air grew heavy. A pressure touched his mind, cool and steady. Not fear, judgment. A voice, not spoken out loud, but felt like a thought that was not his. You rule this land with scraps of soul, it seemed to say. Voldemort's eyes widened, just a fraction. He pushed back harder. I am immortal. I am. The answering presence felt amused in a cold way. Small crown. Voldemort's face twisted with fury. He struck the wall with a spell. Stone cracked. The presence did not flinch. It only pressed one last thought into him before it withdrew. Order does not need your permission. The pressure vanished. Voldemort stood breathing hard. His Death Eaters stayed frozen, terrified to speak. Voldemort's voice came out low and deadly. Find it. A Death Eater stammered. My lord, if it is stronger. Voldemort's eyes snapped to him. If it is stronger, he whispered, then I will take what makes it strong. He turned to the darkness like it was an enemy's face. And if it thinks it can use my world, Voldemort said, it will learn what it means to be hunted. Back at Hogwarts, the dream spread. Students woke crying. Some woke angry. Some woke quiet, staring at the wall, like they were listening to something nobody else could hear. Dumbledore walked the corridors at night with slow steps. He paused outside doors where children slept. He listened, not with ears, with care. In one hallway, he found Flitwick standing with a small charm device in his hands, shaking slightly. I've never felt the castle resist like this, Flitwick admitted, voice small but steady. It is like someone is tugging at the foundation. Dumbledore nodded. Yes. McGonagall appeared from a staircase, her face lined with anger. It's not enough that Voldemort threatens them, she said. Now this. Dumbledore's gaze lifted to the dark ceiling. This one is different. How? McGonagall demanded. Dumbledore's voice was quiet. Voldemort wants fear so people obey him. This one wants fear so people become simpler, smaller, easier to shape. McGonagall's hands clenched. Then we fight it. Dumbledore's eyes softened, but the steel stayed. We will. He walked on. As he turned a corner, Snape stepped out of shadow like he had been part of the wall. The students are being targeted, Snape said. Dumbledore nodded. I know. Snape's voice lowered. It found Potter. Dumbledore stopped. Snape's eyes were hard. The boy's scar, the link, it's a weakness. Dumbledore's gaze did not move. And a strength. Snape's mouth tightened. A door is not a strength. Dumbledore looked at him. A door can be guarded. Snape's eyes flickered. He wanted to argue. Instead, he said, then teach him to lock it. Dumbledore nodded once. Yes. Snape's voice was flat, but there was something urgent under it. And do not underestimate what it will offer him. Dumbledore's eyes turned distant, as if he could already hear the offer forming. Snape stepped closer. Potter is stubborn, he said, but he is also tired. Dumbledore's voice was soft. So are we all. Snape's face twisted, like he hated that truth. Then he vanished back into darkness. Dumbledore stood alone for a moment. The castle creaked softly around him. It felt like a home trying to stay brave. That same night, Harry fell asleep with his wand on his pillow. He did not trust the dark anymore. He did not even trust his own dreams. He dreamed anyway. He was walking down a long stone hall. It was not Hogwarts. The stone was darker. The air was colder. The ceiling was higher. He could hear distant breathing, like a giant creature asleep far away. He walked because his feet moved without asking him. At the end of the hall was a doorway. Not a wooden door. A gap in the air. Behind it, a heatless fire burned, black at the center. Harry stopped, heart pounding. A voice spoke from behind him. Not Voldemort. Deeper. Calmer. You are tired, the voice said. Harry turned. The armored figure stood there, tall and still, like a statue made of night. Harry's scar burned. He raised his wand. Get out of my head. The figure did not move closer. It did not need to. You carry another dark one in you, the voice said. A torn soul. A parasite. Harry's breath caught. I can pull it out, the voice went on. I can end your war in one night. Harry's hands shook. Why would you help me? The figure's helm tilted. Because you will help me, it said simply. Harry swallowed. No. The figure did not get angry. It sounded almost patient. You are brave, it said. That is rare. I do not wish to break you. I wish to use you. Harry's stomach turned. That's the same thing. The figure's voice lowered, like it was telling him a secret. Not always, it said. There is peace in order. There is safety in obedience. No more funerals. No more fear. Harry's eyes stung. For one horrible second, he imagined it. A world where Cedric lived. A world where Sirius could laugh again. A world where nobody screamed in the night. His grip on his wand tightened. Then he remembered Luna's voice. Don't let it decide what you are. Harry forced his words out through pain. You don't get to choose for me. The figure's presence pressed on him, heavier. Not crushing him. Testing him. Harry's scar flared like fire. He cried out, but he did not drop his wand. The figure paused. The pressure eased slightly. Interesting, the voice said, like a person taking notes. Then the figure spoke one last line, calm as a promise. The door will open again. Harry woke up gasping. His sheets were damp. Ron sat up in the bed beside him, eyes wide. Harry, you okay? Hermione's voice came from the darkness nearby. She must have been standing watch in the room's doorway with a few others from the D.A. What happened? She whispered. Harry's throat was tight. It offered to end Voldemort. Ron stared. What? Harry's scar pulsed, slower now, like it was satisfied. Harry swallowed hard. It said I would help it. Hermione's face went pale. It's using you as a key. Harry stared at his hands. He felt cold. Not because he wanted the offer. Because he knew the offer would come again. And it would try new words next time. Words that hurt more. The next day, strange things began to happen. Small things, like whispers with teeth. A Hufflepuff boy who always smiled snapped at his friend and said, "Stop being weak." A Ravenclaw girl who never broke rules started skipping class, eyes distant, like she was following orders. Two Slytherins who hated each other suddenly agreed on everything, like puppets sharing one string. Hermione watched it all with growing dread. In the library, she whispered to Harry, "It's building something." Harry's mouth was dry. What? A network, Hermione said. Not an army with swords. An army of choices it has stolen. Ron shivered. That's worse than swords. Hermione nodded once. Yes. They looked up as Umbridge passed the library entrance with a smug smile. She posted another decree. Educational decree number, she sang. Ron groaned. If she posts one more, I'm going to scream. Hermione read the parchment and went still. What? Harry asked. Hermione's voice was flat. She's ordering mind-healing checks. She wants students brought to her office if they report nightmares. Harry's stomach dropped. She's going to punish them for being scared. Ron's face reddened. How is that legal? Hermione's eyes were sharp. It isn't about legal. It's about control. Harry stared at the parchment. It struck him, sudden and sick. The armored stranger wanted order. Umbridge wanted order too. Not the same kind. But both used fear to get it. Harry felt his hands curl into fists. And somewhere deep in his mind, he felt the calm pressure of being watched, like a shadow behind a curtain. In the Forbidden Forest, the armored figure stood in stillness and listened. Not to birds, not to wind, to minds. It had learned the castle's rhythm. Morning rush, lesson boredom, lunch noise, night fear. It had learned the names people used for their small powers. Wand, spell, charm. It had learned the bigger truth beneath those names. Magic here was tied to intent, to choice, to meaning. That made it strong. That also made it predictable. The figure held the iron ring in its hand. The ring was no longer plain iron. It had been worked in darkness, pressed with will, shaped by a mind that did not get tired. Still, it was not complete, because the strongest anchors in this world did not come from metal. They came from loyalty, sacrifice, promise. The figure's attention turned toward the boy again. The boy was a door. The boy's will resisted, but the door existed. And beyond the boy, another dark mind waited, proud and angry. Two dark lords in one world. That was a weakness. Also an opportunity. The figure made a decision. It would stop pressing at the castle walls for now. Walls could be stubborn. Hearts could be opened. And the easiest heart to open was the one already scarred. A week later, Hogwarts felt like a tightened fist. Dumbledore met with the Order in secret. They spoke in low voices, their faces lit by lamplight and worry. Kingsley Shacklebolt stood near a window, arms crossed, listening hard. Molly Weasley wrung her hands. "It's hurting children in their sleep," she whispered. Remus Lupin's eyes were tired. "It's not hitting them, it's shaping them." Sirius Black paced like a caged animal. "Then we hit back." Dumbledore's voice was calm. "If we rush, we give it exactly what it wants." Sirius snapped. "It wants control. How do we stop control without force?" Dumbledore looked at him. "By protecting choice." Some of them looked confused. Dumbledore continued, "It will offer peace to the frightened, power to the bitter, safety to the lonely." His eyes grew sad. "And it will not offer these things loudly. It will offer them like kindness." Kingsley's jaw tightened. "The Ministry is making it worse." Dumbledore nodded. "Yes." A quiet voice spoke from the corner. "Snape, it is building an anchor," he said, like he was naming a storm. Dumbledore's gaze flicked to him. "You feel it?" Snape's eyes were cold. It left a pressure in the walls, a mark, like someone started carving their name into the castle. Molly's voice trembled. "Can it be stopped?" Dumbledore's face did not soften into false comfort. "We will try." He looked at the group. "But understand this is not Voldemort." Sirius's eyes flashed. "It's worse." Dumbledore did not argue. He only said, "It is older." And in that quiet room, they all felt it. A new kind of fear. Not fear of death. Fear of being changed. The next night, the side of Hogwarts that held ancient secrets shifted again. Not with an earthquake. With a slow, quiet change, like the castle turning in its sleep. Behind a tapestry, stone smoothed itself. A door appeared. The room of requirement answered a need again. But this need was not Harry's. It belonged to something patient and cold. Inside, the room shaped itself into a workshop. No fire burned, but the air felt like metal. On a long stone table sat objects gathered quietly over days. A fallen suit of armor piece, a cracked wardstone chip, a thread of enchanted rope taken from a doorway barrier. Small things, pieces. The armored figure stood over them and held out the ring. Then it pressed its will down like a steady hand. The objects trembled, not because they were afraid, because magic in them recognized power. Shadows rose and moved like tools. They wrapped around the ring, then slid away, leaving faint markings in the metal. The ring was learning Hogwarts, not its walls, its rules. The figure paused. It could feel a resistance, not from stone, from meaning. Some magic in this place did not obey strength. It obeyed worth. It obeyed choice. The figure did not rage. It simply adjusted. If choice was the lock, then it needed a key made of choice. A person, a loyal mind, someone the castle would accept. The figure turned its attention outward again. It began to search for the easiest key to shape. A boy who already carried torn soul. A child who could be pushed and pulled by love, by loss, by anger. Harry Potter. The first founder relic it tested was not the sword or the hat. It tested something smaller. A promise. A tradition. The sorting hat was kept safe, but it was also carried out in public and placed on children's heads. It touched minds. It knew fears. It knew secrets. That made it useful. On a quiet afternoon, when the great hall was empty, the hat, sat alone in a cabinet near the staff table, waiting. The armored figure stepped from shadow near the door. The air changed. Portraits on the walls shivered. A few tried to scream, then went silent like someone had put a hand over their mouths. The figure approached the cabinet without hurry. It did not break the lock. It did not need to. It pressed its will at the cabinet's magic, and the latch clicked as if it had always wanted to open. The hat lay there, old and patched and small. It looked harmless. The figure reached toward it. The hat moved. Not physically, but the air around it stiffened. A feeling pushed back. Not strong like a shield, stubborn like a child refusing to hand over a toy. The figure's presence pressed harder. The hat's stitched mouth opened, and it screamed. Not in sound, in mind. A burst of alarm shot through the castle's hidden channels. The figure paused, surprised in a quiet way. It pressed again. The hat's mind flooded with images. 4 friends, 4 houses, a castle built to protect children. Choice. Always choice. The figure felt irritation for the first time. Not rage. A cold annoyance. Because it could dominate many minds. But this mind was not one child. It was 1,000 traditions stitched together. The hat did not obey. It did not kneel. It only shoved back one message like a shield made of words. You will not sort this castle. The figure withdrew its hand slowly. Then it spoke, low and calm, like a promise. Everything sorts. It stepped back into shadow. The cabinet door clicked shut. But the hat's warning had already rippled through Hogwarts like a bell. Dumbledore felt it at once. He stood from his desk, eyes narrowing. Fawkes lifted its head, feathers shifting. McGonagall arrived at his office door within minutes, breath tight. "The hat," she said. Dumbledore nodded. "Yes." Snape's voice came from behind her, sharp as a knife. It touched it. McGonagall's hands clenched. How did it even... Dumbledore didn't answer. His eyes were distant, listening to the castle. Then he said quietly, "It is learning what refuses it." Snape's mouth tightened. "And it will not accept refusal." Dumbledore turned toward the window and looked out at the grounds. The sky was calm. That almost made it worse. Because calm meant planning. Hermione found out about the hat that night through whispers and scared gossip. She cornered Harry and Ron in an empty corridor. "It went for the hat," she whispered. Ron's eyes went wide. "Why the hat?" Hermione's voice was tense. "Because it's old. It's tied to the castle. It touches minds." Harry's scar pulsed. Hermione grabbed Harry's sleeve. "Harry, if it can touch the hat, it can touch anything connected to Hogwarts' choices." Ron swallowed. "Like the sword?" Hermione nodded. "Exactly." Harry frowned. "But the sword isn't just lying around." Hermione's eyes darted, thinking. "It appears when a true Gryffindor needs it." Ron stared. "So it can't steal it." Hermione's voice dropped. "Not directly." Harry felt cold spread in his chest. "So it'll use someone." Hermione's eyes met his. "Yes." Harry swallowed. He could almost hear the calm voice in his dream again. Doors can be opened. A few nights later, the story moved far from Hogwarts. To London. To a building that held secrets behind plain walls. The Department of Mysteries. A ministry worker named Albert Runcorn walked down a quiet corridor with a stack of papers in his hands. He was not supposed to be there at this hour. But he told himself he had a reason. A voice had spoken in his dreams for 3 nights. It had been calm. It had promised certainty. It had said, "You hate chaos. You hate being told you are nothing. Open a door, and you will matter." Albert's hands trembled as he reached the heavy door marked with a simple symbol. He had a key. He slid it in. The door clicked. The hallway beyond was dark. Albert swallowed. He stepped inside. The air behind him changed. Cold. Heavy. Albert's breath caught. He turned. A tall figure in black armor stood in the doorway like it had always been there. Albert's mind screamed at him to run. But his legs did not move. The figure did not touch him. It did not need to. "Open," the figure said calmly. Albert's voice shook. "Well, what?" The figure's presence pressed. Albert lifted his hand, trembling, and reached toward the next door inside the department. It unlocked with a soft sound. Tears ran down Albert's cheeks, and he did not understand why. He had wanted to matter. Now he felt like a tool. The figure stepped past him without looking. Albert sank to the floor, shaking as the doors ahead opened one by one. Not because they wanted to, because Albert's choice was being stolen. In the circular room of the department, the doors stood like silent mouths. The armored figure moved from door to door. It did not know the ministry's names for these places. It did not need names. It felt what they held. Time, death, thought, prophecy, rooms of power shaped by ideas. It paused at one door. Behind it, the air hummed like a wire pulled tight. The figure pressed the door open. It entered a long hall lined with tall shelves. Glass orbs glowed softly in rows. Prophecies. The figure stood still. And for the first time since arriving in this world, it felt something look back. Not a mind. A system. A rule older than the ministry. Older than Hogwarts. The prophecy orbs trembled. One orb, far down the hall, began to glow brighter than the rest. It shook on its shelf. A whisper leaked from it, like a voice trapped behind glass. The figure's helm turned toward it. A name pressed into the air, faint at first, then clearer. Sauron. The word slid into the hall like an ancient label finding its match. The figure did not react with surprise. It reacted with recognition. Yes, the world remembers names, it thought. Good. The orb shook harder. The whisper continued, broken and strange, like an old recording. The Lord of the Rings, the eye that seeks. The figure took one step toward it. Then alarms exploded. A harsh bell sound slammed through the department. Bright charms flared along the ceiling. The shelves glowed with warning lines. Someone had noticed the breach. The figure turned away from the orb, not because it feared the ministry, because it did not need the orb yet. It had already gained something else. A truth. The world's deep magic could name it. That meant the world could also try to bind it. It stepped backward into the shadows between shelves just as footsteps thundered in the doorway. Aurors flooded in with wands raised. Their leader shouted, "Drop your weapon! Hands where we can see them!" The armored figure stood still. It did not carry a wand. It did not need one. A young Auror's voice shook. "What is that?" The leader barked, "Focus!" They fired together. Stunners, binding spells, bright ropes of magic meant to wrap and lock. The spells hit the figure's shadow and broke apart like sparks in deep water. The Aurors froze for half a heartbeat. That half heartbeat was enough. Fear washed through them. Not a scream, not a monster roar. Just a pressure that made their minds show them their worst failure. A few Aurors stumbled. One dropped his wand. The leader gritted his teeth and slammed a device onto the floor. It was a small metal disc with runes carved into it. It flared with clean white light. The air cleared. The fear pressure weakened. The Aurors straightened. "Again!" the leader shouted. They fired. The armored figure lifted a hand. The shelves near it groaned. Glass orbs rattled. A heavy shelf slid sideways. Not falling, but moving like a wall. Spells struck the shelf and shattered glass. Prophecy orbs burst like bubbles. Voices poured out, screaming names and warnings into the air. The hall filled with chaos. The Aurors flinched, trying not to get cut by flying glass. The figure moved through it like it was walking through rain. It did not rush, but it did not stop. Above ground, at Hogwarts, Dumbledore stood in his office with his wand in his hand. A Patronus burst from it, bright and swift, racing away like a silver bird. Kingsley Shacklebolt received it in the ministry and went pale. "He's in the department," Kingsley whispered. Remus Lupin's jaw tightened. Why would he go there? Sirius's eyes flashed. Because it's full of things we don't understand. Kingsley turned sharply. "We have to move. Now." They ran. Back in the Hall of Prophecy, the battle shifted. The Aurors were trained. They were brave. But they were fighting something that treated minds like doors. Still, They adapted. They spread out. They used their light disc devices to keep fear from flooding them again. They fired in patterns, not panic. The armored figure noticed. Good, it thought. Then a new presence slammed into the room like a knife. Voldemort arrived with Death Eaters at his back. He moved like a storm in a body. His eyes locked onto the armored figure at once. For one heartbeat, the hall went quiet in shock. Aurors stared. Death Eaters froze, confused. Two dark powers faced each other in a place that was never meant to hold them. Voldemort spoke first, voice cold and sharp. You. The armored figure turned its helm slightly. Voldemort's lip curled. You trespass in my world. The armored figure's voice was calm. Your world is loud. Voldemort's eyes narrowed. I offered you alliance. The armored figure did not move. You offered noise. I require order. Voldemort's fury flared like fire. He lifted his wand fast. Avada Kedavra. Green light blasted across the hall. It hit the shadow near the armored figure. The shadow swallowed it. Not blocked it. Swallowed it. The green light vanished like it had never been. Voldemort's eyes widened, just a fraction. Then his face twisted with rage. He fired again and again, savage. The armored figure did not fall. It did not even step back. It lifted its hand. The floor between them cracked. Stone rose in a jagged line like a sudden wall. Voldemort's spells slammed into it, tearing stone apart. Glass orbs shattered from the shock. Prophecy voices screamed into the air. Death Eaters spread out, firing at Aurors. Aurors fired back. The hall became a storm of light, broken glass, and shouting. And through it all, the armored figure walked toward the center like it was stepping onto a board it planned to own. Hermione could not see any of this, but she felt it. Back in Hogwarts, she stood in the common room with Harry and Ron, and the air suddenly tightened. The candles flickered. A heavy pressure brushed the edge of Harry's mind. Harry flinched and grabbed his scar. Hermione's eyes widened. It's doing something big. Ron's voice shook. Bigger than the hat? Hermione swallowed. Yes. Harry's face was pale. Voldemort. I can feel him too. Ron's mouth fell open. What do you mean you can feel him too? Harry's breathing was shallow. Like two storms in my head. Hermione's hands clenched. Harry, stay with us. Don't drift. Harry nodded, jaw tight. They sat him down. Hermione forced him to focus on her voice, on Ron's hand on his shoulder, on the room around them. Choice, she thought fiercely. Choice is the lock. In the Department of Mysteries, the armored figure reached the end of the Hall of Prophecy. It paused at a door that hummed with a different rule. Death. The Veil Chamber. It stepped inside. The room was wide and circular, with stone steps leading down to an old archway. A thin, black curtain hung there, moving as if a wind blew only for it. Whispers came from behind it. The armored figure stopped. For the first time, it felt something it could not treat as fear. The veil did not care about dominance. It cared about endings. The whispers brushed the armored figure's mind, not with terror, but with pull. Come, the veil seemed to say. Not like a threat, like gravity. The armored figure's presence pressed back, testing. And for a brief, sharp moment, it felt a pressure in its own being. Not pain. A reminder. You are not a body, it realized. You are a will-wearing shape. The veil did not fear will. The veil took everything. The armored figure took one slow step back. It did not retreat in panic. It retreated with calculation. This rule is not mine, it thought. Not yet. Behind it, Voldemort's voice snapped through the air. What are you? The armored figure turned. Voldemort stood at the top of the steps, wand raised, eyes blazing. Death Eaters and Aurors still fought behind him in the halls, but Voldemort had followed the true target. The armored figure's voice was calm. A maker of crowns. Voldemort hissed. This is my age, my power, your fear. The armored figure cut in, quiet and heavy. You built your throne on fear, and now fear is all you have. Voldemort's eyes flashed with hate. I have immortality. The armored figure tilted its helm. You have fragments. Voldemort's face twisted. He fired again. The green curse streaked toward the armored figure. It met a wave of shadow and vanished again. Voldemort's breathing turned harsh. He hated problems he could not kill. The armored figure lifted its hand. Not to strike Voldemort, to touch the air between them. And Voldemort felt it. A pressure at the edge of his mind. A hand reaching for his secrets. Voldemort snarled and slammed up mental walls with sheer will. The armored figure did not break through. Not fully. But it tasted enough. It tasted torn soul. It tasted hunger. It tasted a boy's name like a thread tied to Voldemort's core. Harry Potter. The armored figure withdrew its pressure. It had what it needed. Voldemort thought it was retreating. He stepped forward, ready to strike again. That was when the order arrived. Kingsley burst into the chamber first, wand blazing. Tom. Voldemort's head snapped toward him, fury sharpened by surprise. Sirius followed, eyes wild. Remus. Others. And in the doorway behind them, Dumbledore stepped in like the room belonged to him. For one heartbeat, the veil whispered louder, as if it enjoyed the gathering of heavy fates. Dumbledore's eyes locked onto the armored figure. He did not look shocked. He looked like a man seeing the shape of a war. The armored figure stood between two dark lords and the brightest wizard of the age. It did not flinch. Dumbledore's voice was calm. So this is where you choose to speak. The armored figure's voice was low. This place names me. Kingsley's eyes widened. What? A cracked prophecy orb rolled near the steps, leaking whispers. Sauron. It breathed again, faint. The name slid into the room like a key turning. Several people froze at the sound, not because they knew it, but because the word carried weight. Sirius snapped. What is that? Dumbledore's gaze sharpened. A name from beyond our world. Voldemort's eyes narrowed, furious that Dumbledore sounded like he understood more than him. Dumbledore raised his wand slowly. Not to attack at once, to draw a circle of protection. Light lines spread across the floor, forming a ring around the veil and the steps. The armored figure felt the rules in that light. Choice, protection, promise. It pressed back. The light trembled, but it held. Dumbledore's eyes did not blink. You may not claim this world. The armored figure's voice was calm. Every world can be claimed. Dumbledore's voice stayed steady. Not by you. The two stared at each other across the chamber. Voldemort snarled, "Enough," and fired at Dumbledore. Dumbledore flicked his wand without looking. Voldemort's curse shattered against a shield like rain against glass. The armored figure watched. It learned. These humans fought each other even when a greater threat stood beside them. It did not need to win tonight. It only needed to leave with new knowledge. It stepped backward into the shadows near the archway. The veil whispered louder. For 1 second, the armored figure's outline flickered, as if the veil tried to pull its shape away. The armored figure paused, surprised again in that quiet way. Then it made a choice. Not to fight the veil. To avoid it, it stepped sideways, not into the veil's pull, but into a shadow cast by the arch's stone. And it vanished. The air pressure lifted. The whispers settled. Dumbledore's light ring dimmed. Kingsley exhaled like he had been holding his breath for a year. Sirius turned, eyes blazing, ready to chase. Dumbledore's voice stopped him. No. Sirius snapped. It got away. Dumbledore's eyes were tired. Yes. Voldemort stood rigid, shaking with rage. Then, like a serpent slipping away, Voldemort apparated with his Death Eaters, leaving Aurors behind with broken shelves, broken glass, and broken nerves. The Ministry would call it a disaster. The Prophet would call it a scandal. But Dumbledore watched the shadow where the armored figure had been and understood something colder. This was not a battle for a room. This was a battle for the kind of people they would become. Back at Hogwarts, the night after the department's chaos, Dumbledore returned with a face that looked calm from far away. Up close, Hermione saw the truth. His calm was effort. Harry stood in the headmaster's office with Ron and Hermione, hands trembling. scar aching like a bruise. Dumbledore did not waste time. "It has a name," Dumbledore said. Ron blurted, "What name?" Dumbledore's eyes met Harry's. "Sauron." Harry felt the word hit him like a cold stone. Hermione's breath caught. "I've never heard it." Dumbledore nodded. "It is not from our stories." Harry swallowed. "It was in my dream." Dumbledore's gaze sharpened. "It came to you?" Harry nodded, jaw tight. "It offered to end Voldemort." Ron's face turned pale. That's insane." Hermione's voice was tight. "That's a trap." Dumbledore's eyes softened. "Yes." He leaned forward slightly. "Harry, it will not try to defeat you with force first. It will try to convince you that surrender is kindness." Harry's hands clenched. "I said no." Dumbledore nodded once, proud but not relieved. "Good." Snape's voice came from the side of the room, as cold as ever. "He will say no again, and again." Harry turned angry. "And if I don't?" Snape's eyes narrowed. "Then you die or you become his tool. Choose." Hermione flinched at the harshness. Dumbledore lifted a hand. "Severus." Snape's mouth tightened, but he fell silent. Dumbledore looked at Harry. "We will strengthen you," he said. "Not with more spells, with better walls in your mind." Harry swallowed. "Like occlumency." Snape's eyes flicked, sharp. Dumbledore nodded. "Yes." Harry's stomach sank. He remembered Snape's last lessons. He also remembered how the armored figure had pressed at Snape's mind and found resistance. If anyone knew how to lock a door, it was Snape. Ron groaned softly like his soul had left his body. Hermione's voice was steadier. "What does Sauron want here?" Dumbledore's eyes went distant. "An anchor. A way to stay whole. A way to claim." Hermione whispered, "He's building something." Dumbledore nodded. "Yes." He looked at them, gentle but firm. "And he will not build it with metal alone." Harry's scar pulsed, slow and heavy, like agreement. Dumbledore's voice lowered. "He will build it with people." Hermione's face went hard. "Then we protect people." Dumbledore nodded once. "Yes." He looked out the window toward the dark grounds. "And we remind them," he said quietly, "that they still have a choice." Outside, Hogwarts stood tall. Inside, fear moved through corridors. And somewhere in the unseen spaces between shadows, Sauron listened. Not angry, not rushed, patient enough to wait for the next door to open. Weeks passed, but the castle did not relax. Hogwarts still looked like Hogwarts. It still had moving stairs and talking portraits and loud lunches. But the air felt tight, like a hand was always close to squeezing. Harry's new routine became simple in a sad way. Go to class, pretend to listen, check his scar like it was a weather report, train with the D.A. when he could. Then, late at night, sit in Snape's office and try to keep his mind from being pushed open. Snape did not make it gentle. "Again," Snape said, pacing in front of Harry like a strict coach. "Clear your thoughts." Harry clenched his jaw. He pictured a black door in his head. He tried to close it. Snape's voice snapped. "Not a picture, not a story. Empty." Harry tried. His mind filled anyway. Cedric, serious, a graveyard, a laugh. Pathetic, Snape said, but his eyes were sharp, not lazy. "He will use your feelings. He will use your love. He will use your anger. Do you understand?" Harry's hand shook. "Yes." Snape leaned closer. "Say it like you mean it." Harry swallowed hard. "He will use my love." Snape's face flickered just for a second. Then it was stone again. "Good," Snape said. "Now block." Harry shut his eyes and pushed his thoughts down. He felt the door in his head close a little more. It never fully shut. Not with the scar there. Not with Voldemort's thread still tied to him. But it was better than nothing. Outside Snape's office, Hermione waited almost every night. Ron waited too, though he mostly complained about it. "This is unfair," Ron muttered one evening, leaning against the wall. "You have homework, and you have nightmares, and now you also have extra brain homework." Hermione glanced at him. He needs it. Ron rubbed his arms. I know. I just hate it. Hermione's eyes softened. Me too. They both looked down the corridor. It was quiet, but they had learned quiet could mean danger now. Sometimes, a student would walk by with a blank face, like they were half asleep. Sometimes, a portrait would close its curtains without being asked. Sometimes, a candle flame would bend the wrong way, like a shadow had passed too close. And always, the school rules got louder. Umbridge made sure of that. Every day there was a new decree. Every day there were new punishments. Every day there were more points stolen for nonsense. One afternoon, Harry walked into the Great Hall to see a new sign hanging near the hourglasses. House points will be reviewed weekly by the High Inquisitor. Ron stared at it, mouth open. She's reviewing points now. Like she's the king of points. Hermione whispered. She's obsessed. Harry did not laugh this time. He felt sick. Because Sauron's presence had taught him something. Obsessed people were easy to use. Sauron did not need to hide anymore. Not fully. He did not walk into the Great Hall. He did not stand on a tower and shout his name. He did not have to. He moved like a thought in the seams of the castle. He listened to fear, because fear was honest. It showed him where the cracks were. He listened to anger, because anger wanted a reason. He listened to lonely minds, because lonely minds wanted someone to tell them they mattered. He found the best ones. A boy who was tired of being laughed at. A girl who felt invisible. A prefect who wanted order so badly it hurt. A Slytherin who wanted control because control felt like safety. He did not force them at first. Forcing was loud. Loud made resistance. He offered them something smaller. Calm. A soft dream where their hearts stopped racing. A feeling of being watched in a way that felt like protection, not threat. Then, when they wanted it again, he asked for one simple thing. Watch. Listen. Tell me. So his network grew. Not like an army with flags. Like a set of eyes. And with those eyes, he learned the castle's habits. He learned where teachers walked alone. He learned which doors were checked at night. He learned when Dumbledore left the castle. He learned when the D.A. met. He learned the boys' limits. He learned the boys' love. And he learned the key truth of Hogwarts. The strongest magic here did not obey power. It obeyed meaning. So he stopped trying to smash the castle's meaning. He decided to steal it. The first time Harry noticed the change, it was during Defense Against the Dark Arts. Or what passed for it. Umbridge stood at the front with a book open and a smile on her face. Turn to chapter 12, she said brightly. We will be learning why practical defense is unnecessary. Half the class slumped. The other half looked angry. A few looked secretly pleased. Harry stared past her shoulder, down the row of students. Draco Malfoy sat with his arms crossed, smirking like always. But his eyes looked calmer, not happy, just steady. Like he knew something other people did not. Draco's gaze flicked to Harry. For a second, Harry felt it. A light pressure, not in his skull like Voldemort, more like a hand hovering near his thoughts. Harry's scar did not burn. It only pulsed once, slow and warning. Draco looked away. Umbridge's voice continued, sweet and pointless. Harry's stomach tightened. He leaned toward Hermione and whispered, "Something's wrong with Malfoy." Hermione didn't answer right away. Her eyes were on Draco too. Then she whispered back, "Not just Malfoy." Harry followed her gaze. Two more students sat with that same calm look, like they were holding a secret. It wasn't obvious enough for a teacher to punish. It was obvious enough for Hermione to notice. Ron on Harry's other side hissed, "Why do some of them look like they're enjoying this?" Hermione whispered, "Because someone is feeding them certainty." Harry's mouth went dry. "Sauron." Hermione nodded once. Umbridge's quill scratched loudly as she wrote names on her punishment list. 5 points from Gryffindor, she said cheerfully, for whispering. Ron clenched his fists. I hate her. Harry hated something else more. He hated that the castle was turning into a place where quiet, scared kids might choose the wrong kind of calm. That night, Sauron came to Harry again, Not in the corridor. Not with armor clanking on stone. In a dream, Harry stood in a wide room under Hogwarts. The stone was old and wet. Water dripped in the dark. A door was set into the wall. No handle. No keyhole. Sauron stood beside it, tall and still. "I told you the door would open again," Sauron said. Harry lifted his wand in the dream out of habit. His hands were shaking, but he held it steady. "Get out," Harry said. Sauron did not move closer. "You trained." Harry's scar burned. Sauron's presence pressed at the edge of Harry's mind, like fingers testing a lock. Harry pushed back, hard. He felt pain spike, but he did not fold. Sauron paused. Not impressed in a friendly way, in a measuring way. "Better," Sauron said. Harry swallowed. "Why are you here?" Sauron turned his helm slightly toward the door. "Because this world is broken. Two dark kings fight for scraps." Harry's jaw tightened. "Voldemort is not a king." Sauron's voice stayed calm. "He is a loud thief of souls. He tears himself apart to avoid endings." Harry's stomach twisted. "You know." Sauron's presence leaned in. "I know what sits in you." Harry's scar screamed for a second, and Harry nearly dropped his wand. Sauron's voice lowered. "I can pull it out." Harry's breath caught. Sauron did not rush the moment. He let it sit there like a shining thing. "No more pain," Sauron said. "No more voice in your head. No more link." Harry's eyes stung. He hated that he wanted it. He forced his words out. "And then what?" Sauron's tone stayed simple. "Then you will open this door for me." Harry stared at the door. "What is it?" he demanded. Sauron's voice was steady. "The heart of the castle. The place where vows live. The place where this tower decides who belongs." Harry felt cold slide down his spine. "You want Hogwarts," Harry said. Sauron tilted his helm. "I want what Hogwarts is." Harry clenched his wand. "No." Sauron's presence pressed harder, not crushing, but heavy enough to make Harry's knees shake. "You have watched children suffer," Sauron said. "You have watched adults lie. You have watched the Ministry punish the brave." Images flashed in Harry's mind. Umbridge's smile. Detentions. Blood quills. His friends afraid. Sauron's voice stayed calm and awful. "Let me make it stop." Harry's throat tightened. "You don't make things stop. You just own them." For a moment, the pressure eased. Sauron's voice became even quieter. "Ownership is safety." Harry remembered Luna's words. "Don't let it decide what you are." He squeezed his eyes shut. "I decide." Sauron's presence touched his scar again. Harry screamed in the dream, but he did not drop his wand. He forced a wall up in his mind. Rough, angry, real. The pressure slipped off, like a hand losing grip. Sauron stood still. Then he spoke, almost gentle, which made it worse. "Not yet," Sauron said, "but soon." The dream room faded. Harry woke up gasping, fingers digging into his sheets. Ron sat up immediately. "Harry!" Hermione was already at the bed, eyes wide. She must have been sleeping lightly, listening for him. Harry swallowed, voice shaking. "He knows about the thing in me." Hermione went pale. "The soul fragment." Ron blinked. "The what?" Hermione didn't explain. She didn't have time. Harry's voice came out rough. "He wants me to open something under the castle." Hermione's hands clenched. "He's going for the core wards." Ron's face drained. "So what do we do?" Harry stared at the dark ceiling. His scar still throbbed. He whispered, "We tell Dumbledore." Dumbledore listened without interrupting. His office was quiet except for Fawkes's soft breathing. Harry stood by the desk, hands clenched. Hermione stood beside him. Ron stood a half step back, still trying to understand soul fragments and core wards at the same time. When Harry finished, Dumbledore's eyes stayed calm, but the room felt heavier. "He wants the castle's meaning," Dumbledore said softly. Hermione nodded fast. "And he's trying to use Harry as the key." Dumbledore looked at Harry. "Because Hogwarts trusts you." Harry's throat tightened. "I didn't ask it to." Dumbledore's voice was gentle. No, you earned it. Snape stood near the wall, arms crossed, face cold. I warned you, Snape said. Harry snapped. I said no. Snape's eyes narrowed. You said no in a dream. Dreams change. People weaken. Hermione bristled. Harry is not weak. Snape's mouth twisted. Harry is human. Dumbledore lifted a hand. Enough. He leaned forward slightly. Harry, you did well. You resisted. That matters. Harry swallowed. It'll come again. Dumbledore nodded once. Yes. Hermione's voice was tight. Can we trap him? If he needs a key? Dumbledore's gaze turned distant. Perhaps. Snape's voice was sharp. He is building an anchor. He will not step into a trap unless it gives him what he wants. Dumbledore's eyes returned to Harry. Then we will give him what he wants. Harry stared. What? Dumbledore's voice stayed steady. A choice. Ron blinked. How is a choice bait? Dumbledore's eyes were sad. Because Sauron believes choice can be stolen. He believes every door can be opened with the right pressure. He straightened. But Hogwarts is not only stone, Dumbledore said. It is people, it is promises, it is courage. Hermione's breath caught as she understood. You want the castle to help? Dumbledore nodded. Yes. Snape's eyes narrowed. And you want Potter to be visible? Harry's stomach dropped, as bait. Dumbledore did not lie. As a line, not a sacrifice. You will not stand alone. Harry felt cold fear, then anger. Then he thought of the D.A. Kids crying from nightmares. He thought of Sauron's calm voice saying ownership is safety. Harry lifted his chin. Okay. Ron grabbed his sleeve. Harry. Harry looked at Ron. His voice was quiet. If I don't, he'll use someone else. Ron's face twisted, scared and angry at the world. Hermione's eyes shone, but she nodded. Dumbledore's voice softened. Thank you. Then his gaze hardened with purpose. We begin tonight, Dumbledore said. That evening, Hogwarts became a chessboard. Teachers moved quietly. Prefects were redirected. Some corridors were sealed. Some were left open on purpose. The room of requirement was watched from a distance, but not touched. Dumbledore did not want Sauron to feel a hand closing in. Harry stayed in Gryffindor Tower longer than usual. He did homework he did not read. He laughed once at something Ron said even though it wasn't funny. He acted normal, because normal was the mask. Hermione was tense, checking her watch again and again. Stop, Ron whispered. You're going to wear a hole into it. Hermione whispered back. That's the point. Downstairs, Umbridge prowled the halls with her clipboard, smiling at every frightened student like she enjoyed it. When she saw Harry in the corridor, her eyes lit up. Mr. Potter, she trilled. Out after hours? Harry kept his face blank. Professor McGonagall told me to bring a message. Umbridge's smile tightened. Did she? Harry nodded, calm. Umbridge sniffed. Very well. But remember, rules exist for a reason. Ron muttered under his breath. Yeah, to make you happy. Umbridge's head snapped toward him. What was that? Ron forced a smile that looked painful. Nothing, Professor. Umbridge's eyes narrowed. 5 points from Gryffindor. For your tone. Hermione's hands clenched. Harry took a slow breath. If he exploded now, Sauron would learn the wrong lesson. They kept walking. Behind them, Umbridge's sweet voice called, And detention for tomorrow, Mr. Weasley. I do love helping students improve. Ron's face turned red. I hate her so much. Harry whispered. Later. They turned a corner. The air changed. A chill rolled along the stone like a shadow brushing past. Harry's scar throbbed. Hermione whispered, He's close. Harry swallowed. I know. They reached the staircase that led down toward older parts of the castle. Harry's feet felt heavy, but he walked anyway. Sauron watched. Not with eyes. With attention. He felt the boy moving toward the heart of the castle. He felt the teachers shifting like nervous guards. He felt traps in the air. He did not fear traps. Traps were proof of respect. He stepped from shadow into a corridor behind Harry. No one screamed. No one saw him. A portrait's mouth opened, then shut again as fear crushed its will. Sauron followed the boy at a distance. He did not rush. He waited until the boy reached the place where stone felt older, where air smelled like deep history. There, he spoke into the boy's mind like a whisper that didn't belong. "Now, Harry Potter." Harry stopped. Ron and Hermione froze. Hermione's wand snapped up, shaking. Ron's breath hitched. Harry's scar burned like fire. Harry forced his voice out, loud enough for others to hear. "No." Sauron's shadow deepened at the end of the corridor. His armor shape grew clear, tall and solid. Hermione swallowed hard. "Stay back." Sauron's voice was calm, spoken out loud now. "You chose to come." Harry's hands shook, but he lifted his wand. "I chose to say no." Sauron's helm tilted. "You chose pain." Harry's voice came rough. "Better than being owned." For a moment, Sauron's presence pressed like a weight on Harry's chest. Ron swayed. Hermione's face went pale, but she did not lower her wand. Then a light flared from behind Harry. Dumbledore stepped into view, wand raised, eyes steady. McGonagall and Flitwick appeared on either side, like guardians. Snape stood slightly back, face hard. Sauron did not look surprised. He looked satisfied. "So," Sauron said, "the Keeper arrives." Dumbledore's voice was calm. "You are not welcome here." Sauron's voice did not change. "This place is a crown that does not know it is a crown." Dumbledore lifted his wand. Lines of light raced along the floor. Wards woke up like a net snapping tight. A circle formed around Sauron, clean and bright. Sauron pressed back. The circle trembled. Stone cracked in thin lines. But the circle held, because it was not only force. It was promise. Dumbledore spoke clearly. "Hogwarts chooses its own." Sauron's voice was low. "Then let it choose." He turned his attention to Harry. The pressure on Harry's mind increased. Not a flood, a careful, sharp push, searching for the lock. Harry's scar screamed. Harry's knees bent. Hermione grabbed his arm. "Harry, look at me." Harry forced his eyes to Hermione's face. Her eyes were fierce, scared, real. Harry breathed. He pushed back with everything he had learned. Not empty mind, not perfect wall, just stubborn choice. Sauron paused. Then he moved his hand slightly. Behind him, the corridor darkened. A ring of metal slid out of shadow and hovered in the air, spinning slowly. It looked simple, but it felt wrong, like it carried a claim. Ron stared. "Is that—" Hermione whispered. "His anchor." Sauron's voice was calm. "This world will have order. With you or without you." Dumbledore's eyes sharpened. "You will not bind this castle." Sauron lifted the ring. The ring flew forward toward the floor, aiming for a spot where the stone felt like a heartbeat. The heart ward. At the same moment, Snape struck, not with a curse, with a cutting spell aimed at the shadow behind the ring. The spell did not destroy the ring. It severed the shadow thread guiding it. The ring dropped, clanged, and rolled. For the first time, Sauron's calm slipped into irritation. He stepped forward, and the light circle groaned. Dumbledore's wand snapped upward. The air between them became thick, like invisible glass. Sauron pressed. Dumbledore held. Then a new sound cut through the castle. A scream. Not a student. An alarm. Hogwarts itself. The walls shuddered. Portraits screamed. Torches flared. Flitwick's eyes widened. Someone broke the outer wards. McGonagall's face went tight. Death Eaters. Sauron's helm turned slightly, as if listening to distant chaos. Dumbledore's jaw tightened. Tom chose now. Sauron's voice was low, almost amused. Loud thief. And then Voldemort arrived. Not in the corridor itself, but like a storm punching a hole into the castle's edge. A wave of cold rolled through the stones. In the distance, spells crashed. Screams echoed. Sauron felt Voldemort's presence like a sharp stink in the air. Voldemort wanted the ring. Voldemort wanted to win. Sauron did not care who won tonight. He cared about the door. He lifted his presence again, pressing at Harry's scar like fingers at a latch. Harry cried out. Hermione shouted, "Protego!" Her shield charm flared around Harry's head like a thin bubble. It didn't stop Sauron's will, but it slowed it. It gave Harry one more second. Dumbledore's voice cut through, strong and clear. Harry, choose. Harry's vision swam. He saw flashes of peace, quiet, friends alive. Then he saw Umbridge smiling while she hurt kids. He saw Voldemort laughing. He heard Sauron's calm voice saying ownership is safety. Harry forced his breath in. He shouted raw, "No!" The word did not blast like a spell, but the castle heard it, because Hogwarts had always listened to brave, stubborn children. The stone under Harry's feet warmed. A low hum rose through the corridor. The light circle around Sauron brightened. Sauron paused again, this time with something like real surprise. Dumbledore's eyes widened a fraction. Yes, the corridor's doors slammed shut on their own. Not by Dumbledore's wand. By Hogwarts choosing a side. The ring on the floor trembled. Sauron's shadow surged toward it, trying to pull it back into his control. And then a sword appeared. Not in Harry's hand. In Neville Longbottom's hand. Neville stumbled into the corridor from a side stair, panting, eyes wide with fear, but jaw set. He held the sword of Gryffindor like it weighed a ton, and also like it was the only real thing in the world. McGonagall's breath caught. "Mr. Longbottom." Neville swallowed hard. "They're attacking the school," he said, voice shaking. "Professor Sprout told me to run messages." His eyes landed on Sauron. He went pale. Harry's heart clenched. "Neville, get back." Neville's hands tightened on the sword. He did not run. He stared at the ring on the floor, then at Harry, like he understood without being told. Neville's voice came out small but clear. "You said, we fight like ourselves." Harry's throat tightened. Sauron's helm turned toward Neville. The pressure shifted. Neville's knees shook, but he did not drop the sword. Sauron's voice was calm. Bravery is a door, too. Neville stepped forward anyway. Not charging. Not heroic screaming. Just stepping. He lifted the sword and brought it down on the shadow thread, reaching for the ring. The blade did not slice metal. It sliced the dark claim around it. The shadows snapped back like a cut rope. The ring's markings flared faintly, then dimmed, like they had lost grip. Sauron's presence surged, angry now. The corridor lights flickered. The walls groaned. Dumbledore's voice went sharp. "Now!" Flitwick fired a tight chain of spells that wrapped the ring in bright lines, not to destroy it, but to lock it in place. Hermione shouted a binding charm, too, adding her magic like a knot. Snape's wand cut through the air, placing a precise seal on the ring's shadow layer. McGonagall snapped her wand down and commanded the castle itself. The stone under the ring opened like a mouth, just enough to hold it. Dumbledore's wand lifted high. Light poured from it, not like fire, but like a rule being spoken into the world. "By the choice of this castle," Dumbledore said, voice echoing, "you will not take what you did not build." The ring sank into the stone. The stone closed. Sauron stepped forward, and for a heartbeat it looked like he might tear the corridor apart. Then Voldemort's laugh echoed from far away, sharp and cruel. "Dumbledore!" Voldemort's voice rang through the castle, carried by magic. "Protecting children again?" Dumbledore's face tightened. He could not fight two Dark Lords at once. Sauron felt that too. He felt the castle's resistance. He felt his anchor being taken out of reach. He made a fast new choice. He would not win the castle tonight, but he would not leave empty-handed. His presence stabbed toward Harry's scar one more time. Not to own Harry. To mark him. To leave a hook. Harry screamed as pain tore through his head. Hermione grabbed him, holding him up. Ron shouted, "Stop!" Sauron's voice came low, close, inside Harry's skull. "Soon, door." Then Sauron stepped backward, not fleeing like a hunted animal, withdrawing like a general choosing the next battlefield. The light circle around him flared, trying to hold. Sauron pressed once, hard enough to crack stone. Then he slipped into the shadow of a twisting stairwell and vanished. The pressure lifted. Harry fell to his knees, panting. Neville stared at his sword like he could not believe it had appeared at all. Dumbledore did not chase. He looked toward the distant battle sounds, eyes sharp. "Minerva," he said, voice firm. "Protect the students. Phileas, hold the inner wards." Then he looked at Snape. "Severus, with me." Snape's eyes flicked to Harry, then away. Of course. Dumbledore moved like lightning now, not calm, not slow. He and Snape vanished down the corridor toward the war with Voldemort. McGonagall turned to Harry and the others, her face fierce. "Get them to safety, now." Ron grabbed Harry under one arm. Hermione grabbed the other. Harry's legs shook, but he forced himself up. As they moved, Umbridge's voice suddenly shrieked from a side hall. "What is the meaning of this? You cannot be here. This is against school rules." They turned. Umbridge stood in front of two terrified first-years. Her wand pointed at them like the wand was more important than the screaming and spellfire in the distance. She spotted Harry and went bright with anger. "Potter, out of bed, out of bounds. 50 points from..." A blast of green light flashed down the corridor, missing by inches and scorching the stone beside her. Umbridge screamed and threw herself flat. The first-years screamed too. Harry stared at her, breath ragged. Even now, even in a real attack, she still tried to take points. Ron snapped. "Shut up about points!" Umbridge's mouth opened, shocked that a student had yelled at her. Hermione shoved the first-years behind her. "Run. To your head of house." The first-years bolted. Umbridge scrambled up, shaking. "How dare you!" Another explosion shook the castle. Dust fell from the ceiling. Umbridge froze, finally seeing reality. Then she turned and ran the other way, robes flying, making a small, high noise like a frightened mouse. Ron stared after her. Good. Harry didn't feel good. He felt like the castle was breaking into two wars at once. And he knew Sauron would remember everything he had seen tonight. The battle with the Death Eaters lasted less than an hour, but it felt like a full night. Aurors arrived late. The Ministry tried to pretend it was in control. The Order fought like people defending a home. Voldemort did not stay to be trapped. He came to strike, to steal, to prove he was still the biggest fear in the room. But he left with something else. He left with anger. Because he had felt another Dark Lord in his world, and it had not bowed. Dumbledore returned near dawn with ash on his robes and a tired look behind his eyes. No one asked for details in front of students, but the castle itself seemed to sag with exhaustion. Classes were canceled for 2 days. Students were kept in common rooms. Healers walked the halls. And the dreams changed. They did not vanish, but they softened, like the loudest voice had stepped back a little. Still, Harry's scar did not stop hurting. It no longer only burned when Voldemort was near. Sometimes it pulsed for no reason at all, like a hook being tested. Hermione noticed. She didn't say anything right away. She waited until Harry looked steady enough to hear it. "He marked you," she whispered one evening as they sat by the common room fire. Harry stared into the flames. "I know." Ron's face tightened. "Can we get rid of it?" Hermione swallowed. "Not easily." Harry's hands clenched. He said soon. Hermione's voice was soft but fierce. "Then we make sure soon never becomes now." Harry nodded once. Outside the window, the sky was pale. The lake was calm. The world looked normal again, and that almost made it worse. Because Harry understood now, normal could be a mask too. Time moved forward anyway. Hogwarts repaired itself in small ways. Broken stone was fixed. Shattered glass was replaced. Portraits calmed down and started gossiping again. But trust did not repair as fast as stone. Some students watched their friends like they were afraid they might be listening to something else. Some students refused to sleep with the lights off. Some students pretended nothing happened and laughed too loudly. And the teachers changed. McGonagall walked like she was always ready to fight. Flitwick smiled at students more than before, like he wanted them to remember joy still existed. Snape became even quieter, which somehow made him feel more dangerous. Dumbledore seemed older, but also more focused, like he had accepted that the world was bigger than it should be. Umbridge returned to her office after 2 days hiding somewhere, and she acted as if the attack had been a simple, rule-breaking event. She posted 3 new decrees in 1 day. Ron counted them like it was a joke. "She's panicking," Hermione whispered. "She's trying to make paper feel stronger than fear." Harry almost smiled. Almost. Because every time he thought of paper, he also thought of Sauron. Calm. Patient. Sure. Sauron did not post decrees. He planted ideas. One quiet afternoon, Harry found himself by the lake. He had not planned to come here. His feet just carried him. The wind was cold. The water was dark and smooth. He sat on a rock and watched ripples move. Hermione and Ron were not with him. For once, he needed silence that belonged to him, not to a threat. His scar gave a small pulse. Not burning. Just a reminder. Harry closed his eyes and breathed slowly, the way Snape had forced him to learn. He thought about the dream offer again. No more pain. No more funerals. It had been so tempting it made him angry. He opened his eyes and stared at the lake. "You don't get to choose for me," he whispered, not sure who he was talking to. A soft voice came from behind him. "That's true." Harry turned. Luna Lovegood stood there with her hands behind her back, hair moving in the wind. Harry blinked. "Hi." Luna nodded. "Hello." She looked at the lake, then at Harry's forehead, like she could see the ache. "Is it quieter?" she asked. Harry swallowed. "A bit." Luna nodded as if that made sense. "Quieter doesn't mean gone." Harry's mouth tightened. "I know." Luna sat on the grass nearby like she had all the time in the world. "You said no," she said. Harry looked at her. "How do you know?" Luna shrugged. "You look like someone who said no." Harry huffed a laugh that surprised him. It was small, but it was real. Luna's eyes stayed calm. People think power is when you can make others move. Harry stared at the lake. Luna continued. "But sometimes power is when you don't move." Harry's throat tightened. He thought about Neville stepping forward with shaking hands and not running. He thought about Hermione staying steady while fear pressed on her. He thought about Ron shouting at Umbridge about points in the middle of a real attack. Harry let out a slow breath. "Thank you," he said quietly. Luna nodded once, like he had thanked her for telling him the weather. Then she stood. "You should eat dinner," she said, practical as ever. "You get grumpy when you don't." Harry blinked. "Do I?" Luna nodded. "Yes." And then she walked away, humming softly, as if humming could hold back darkness. Harry sat a little longer. He looked at Hogwarts on the hill. It still stood. It still chose, and as long as it chose, maybe people could too. That night, in the Great Hall, McGonagall stood to speak before dinner. Her voice rang out, sharp and clear. "Students," she said, "the points taken during the recent disruptions will be reviewed." Umbridge's head snapped up, eyes wide. McGonagall continued. "Many points were removed for reasons that had nothing to do with conduct or merit." A ripple of quiet laughter moved through the hall. Umbridge's smile looked like it might crack. McGonagall's eyes swept the students. "Hogwarts is a school, not a prison, not a stage for politics." Umbridge rose, face red. "You cannot." McGonagall cut in, cold as winter. "Sit down, Dolores." Umbridge froze. For 1 second, the whole hall went silent. Then, slowly, Umbridge sat. McGonagall lifted her wand and flicked it toward the hourglasses. Red stones rose back up into Gryffindor's glass. Blue stones rose too. Yellow. Green. A simple act. But the hall felt warmer. Students cheered, not loudly, but with relief, like someone had let them breathe again. Ron leaned toward Harry and whispered, "Points finally did something useful." Harry smiled. It was small, but real. Hermione's eyes shone. "It matters," she whispered. Harry nodded. Not because points were power, because the castle was reminding them. Rules should protect people, not crush them. And somewhere deep under Hogwarts, behind stone sealed by choice and promise, a ring sat in darkness. It did not glow. It did not speak out loud. But in the quiet parts of Harry's mind, a distant pressure lingered. Patient. Watching. Waiting for the next door. Harry lifted his gaze to the enchanted ceiling. The sky above Hogwarts was clear. Life would continue. Homework would continue. Detentions would continue. But Harry understood something now that he did not understand before. Some evils did not need to shout. Some evils offered peace with one hand while the other hand reached for your freedom. Harry took a breath. He looked at Ron and Hermione beside him. He looked at the long tables full of scared, stubborn kids. He looked at teachers who were tired but still standing. And he made the choice again, quietly, inside himself. Not today. Not ever. Outside, the wind moved over the lake. Inside, Hogwarts kept being Hogwarts. And in the deep, dark understone, a trapped will listened to all of it, learning, even now.